Hey guys, Tarke here, and this is going to be my video going over my thoughts on Scourge League. I'm going to make separate videos, talk about the passive skill tree once we have that in our hands when the PoB update is all finished, and I'll do another going over all the patch notes. Worth noting, we have a Bay class tomorrow at 10 PM UK time. I'll leave a timer down below. We'll be going over all of our thoughts on Scourge, all of our thoughts on the patch notes, and all of that goodness. But I have prepared a long list of notes, all the things that stood out to me, and I made a final list at the end of some potential cons. So I'll just put that onto the side of the screen, but for now, let's just kind of go through it. So we have the Scourge League. It's all very exciting. I will let this be looped, and we'll just kind of like talk over it. So we start off with some lovely little footage of Chris, and he does this little like, hey guys, Chris Walton here. And then we get into Scourge itself. So Scourge seems like 3.16 in general seems like a much bigger league than I think any of us really anticipated. They've kind of hit the game from lots of different angles. We've got a new league coming in. We've got a whole bunch of new endgame reworks. We've got substantial changes to the passive skill tree, like the most substantial changes I think we've ever had. We've just had lots of system changes on top of a passive skill tree changes on top of what seems to be potentially quite a big like end game league mechanic. Like, the league mechanics cases are towards the end game, so it should hopefully be a good time. So let's kind of go through our notes here that I made. So how does the Scourge league mechanic actually function? So in true Path of Exile fashion, in Act 1 we'll meet a mysterious figure who says, yo, put this weird thing in your body, and that seems like a normal thing to do in Ray class. So we put this weird like metallic rust, I think they call it rusty, put this rusty thing in our body. And once we've embedded the rust, whenever we kill monsters, a little bar in the top of the screen fills up with blood. When it's full of blood, we can press a button and we go into a demon realm. As you can see, it swaps between the two. There's like a timer. And you just go through, you kill monsters. This charges up your rusty bucket. You put items in the rusty bucket. Once you've put enough blood into the rusty item bucket, you then transform the item, and it gains a powerful negative and positive effect. If I remember correctly, you can transform items up to 3 times and maps up to 10 times. And if you retransform an item, it will re-roll the mods. So let's say that on your first transform, you got a transform that kind of like bricked your build in a sense that like cannot deal physical damage. You could transform it again to get rid of that modifier. It's worth noting that items you transform, they do become corrupted, but they don't become like, for example, if you were to like Val unique, you would end up with like a random rare item. It can't brick the item, but it could add a modifier which could mess with your build. Now, the longer that we're in the Scourge world, we get a stacking debuff. I think it's like 1% more damage per stack of the debuff. So it's going to become very dangerous very quickly to spend too long chilling out in Scourge land. So that should be an interesting one. Now, because a lot of this league will involve us having a lot of just corrupted items, because if you Scourge an item, it corrupts it. And, you know, you just naturally have corrupted items from random league mechanics or double corrupting or whatever. They've introduced a bunch of new currencies that specifically only function on corrupted gear. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it's just worth noting that they've added that. So it seems like the main reward structure of this league is you're getting additional monsters. You're going to be getting additional items from these additional monsters, additional XP, and the big payoff is really going to come from these like Scourge modifiers. Now, let's say that you don't have an item you want to Scourge. The items can still drop items with these rare modifiers on there, and you can also Scourge your maps. So you could just use this as another way of juicing up your mapping content. So, you know, that seems pretty interesting. Now, as you kill enemies in the Scourge land, you'll also gain special experience points for your rusty device. You can see it has like the skill thing on the side there, and it has its own passive skill tree. Now, apparently you can unlock the entire passive skill tree, but that's not a goal that I think is reasonable for the vast majority of players. I think it's like that only the people who play the utmost, like, you know, 40 out of 40 challenges or just have like obscene play times will really get to it. Hopefully it's in a way that it doesn't feel like the upgrades are mandatory. There's nothing in there which is like, you have to have this or it feels bad. But yeah, one thing which should be good about the system is if you're someone who previously struggles with keeping long-term goals, with the changes to the Atlas regions, making the whole Atlas grind less grindy, this could be something which keeps you invested into the league, potentially longer into the league than you might necessarily, not just from the passive skills, but also from the fact that you now suddenly have just another layer of gear progression on every single gear slot. So there's potentially a lot more gear progression keeping you invested for longer, and then also more just account progression through this Scourge skill tree. So, you know, that could be kind of interesting. So one thing I did just mention just then, we have had the Atlas, not a full rework, the full Atlas endgame rework is coming in 3.17, but we've seen the Atlas go down from 8 to 4 regions, the Maven grind speed made less grindy, and just the whole process of going through the Atlas should feel like a much smoother, more enjoyable experience now, which is something that I'm definitely really looking forward to. Now let's just kind of like list off a bunch of just the random quality of life things they've also introduced. Now, when you unveil a modifier, you unlock all tiers of it right away. So there's none of this having to unveil the same thing over and over and over again. This should make unveiling items much less of a hassle. It will still be a slight annoyance that you have to do at league start, but it should feel much, much better now. So that's a good thing. We've now got loot spiraling and loot dropping in stacks when possible, far more often. So for example, if you do a league mechanic, I think one of the examples they showed was breach. When you do a breach, instead of just loot dropping all the way through, now it just drops in a big stack, in a little loot spiral right at the end, all in one nice condensed place. Likewise, if you opened a chest which had like 10 portal scrolls and 8 wisdom scraps in it, it will now just drop as a stack of that. And Chris even said that scrolls in the end game won't drop unless they're in a stack. So instead of it being like, oh, if you're like league start with a terrible filter, or you show it, it's just like hundreds of scrolls everywhere. Instead, scrolls will be much rarer, but they'll drop in like stacks of 10. So hopefully changes like that can make just playing the game less tedious and reduce clicking strain. And that's also one good thing about Scourge, is it doesn't seem like it has too many like intensive spam click moments. So that should be pretty cool. Okay. Uber versions of all of the things. Also worth noting, they've changed how you get access to Uber Lab. So now you just need a trial key. So you don't need to unlock all 6 trials. You do 1 trial, you get the key, you can go do Uber Lab. Hell, you could just buy a key off another player and you can go do Uber Lab. We've now got harder versions of Blight, Legion, Delirium, Delve, and probably something else that I've forgotten, but loads of league mechanics have been either reworked, retuned, and also have more Uber versions, the Uber breaches, something I mentioned earlier. One great thing which is coming with the Delve version. So previously with Delve, you were in this really annoying thing where it's like, okay, I've got into maps, and now I've got to do baby Delve content. Now, for example, is if you got to like tier 16 maps, and you're collecting Sulfite in tier 16 maps, and then you went to Delve, you can start, I think they said it like the equivalent of tier 13 maps. That should make delving feel so much better now. And with that, plus the changes to the lab and the changes to unveiling, a lot of the tedium that comes with a league start should hopefully be removed. There'll always be a little bit of like, but it seems like a lot of that, like, again, with the whole like changes they're doing to the Atlas and everything, it seems like they're removing a lot of the tedium that came with playing Path of Exile these days. So hopefully, this is a great sign of things to come. Hopefully they continue to just improve the base game going forward. So next up, passive tree rework. Passive skill tree changes, always things that make me most excited to play Path of Exile. Not only have they like changed the routing and added a bunch of new nodes all over the skill tree, they've introduced this new system called Atlas Passive Masteries. Basically now when you fill in a notable, you then get a choice. I think it's like 1 of 10 special other things. And these choice notables are shared. So there will be like 10 for all of the chaos notables. So every time you take a chaos notable, you get to pick one of those 10. Once you've picked one, it's ticked off the list. This should make making skill trees very interesting. One complaint I've always had is about how, as someone who enjoys certain types of builds, I feel like my builds are always the same every single time. It's like, oh, I play a lot of traps. all of my trap trees look nearly identical. Oh, I play a lot of chaos builds. My chaos trees always look nearly identical. I'm really curious to see what these notables are going to look like specifically for traps and mines, because they are so specialized. They're in such a tiny part of the skill tree. I'm really curious to see like what interesting new choices we have to come up there. I'm hoping there's something fun in there. So if you're someone who enjoys niche builds, either because it's like an art type that doesn't get much support, or just like you find yourself going for the same kind of things over and over again, then that should be really cool. And also just like the potential you have for like stuff like war cries. I'm trying to think of like random nodes that are less like sexy than normal, or like some of the mana stuff. I don't know. I'm really excited for the mastery stuff. I think the mastery stuff could be really, really cool and very interesting, but I'll do a full video on that once we have a updated path of building and I can really dive into it. We've got a bunch of new skill gems. They've held some back. I think they said they've held 3 back. The kind of focus has kind of been around support gems. And when I say support gems, it's active skills, but like for support style players. Notable thing, something worth noting is you can also use these in minion builds if you use the notable, which lets you use these link skills on minions. So you tether yourself to another character, or if you have the special notable, a minion, and then you get a positive effect between the two of you. But if the person you're linked to died, you also die. Which I think is really interesting. So we'll have to see what the full like package of skills is to really comment. But from the ones we've seen, I think they're pretty cool. We've also seen some improvements to explosive concoction. We'll have to wait and see. And they've doubled down. We're going to have a poisonous concoction, which looks interesting. We'll have to see how the true numbers math out. Also, it's kind of hard to evaluate because they showed us endgame footage of explosive concoction right next to like ledge footage of poisonous concoction. And from the ledge footage, it looked like the projectile speed was significantly slower. But again, that could just be a case of early test footage, or just the endgame character something that the early game character didn't have. But I will just say quickly, if the quality of life improvements they gave to explosive concoction isn't on poisonous concoction, please fix that, GGG. Of the new skills, though, I think I'm most excited / disappointed for Tornado. I've wanted a Tornado skill for a really long time in Path of Exile, and we finally have one. It looks awesome. It also looks very slow and very clunky. Basically, the way it works is it has the orb tag, so you can only have one of them out at once. You throw the tornado down, you shoot projectiles into the tornado. That, like, empowers the tornado. The tornado, like, reflects damage to nearby enemies. It will probably be, like, an amazing bossing ability, but I'd kind of like if I could just, like, spam tornadoes all day and just do, like, a tornado build. Some of these, like, utility-style skills are very interesting. Like, Hydrosphere was a real big winner. Void Sphere was a big winner before that. So hopefully this tornado skill kind of lands in a decent spot. And, you know, it should be okay since you're meant to, like, empower it with projectiles. I guess the idea is that you use the projectiles to clear the map, and then use, like, the tornado empowered by the projectiles to kill the boss. So, I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see how that really meshes out. Finally, this is a thing I'm going to rant about for a little bit. So this is something I've wanted for a very, 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 very long time. They've completely removed favor costs from hideout decorating. So now you just can have as many of the hideout decorations as you want. You just go to the vendor, just get them. I had an interview with Chris like 5 years ago or something. This was like well before ExileCon, saying the favor system needs to be changed. You have a lot of people, it sounds silly, but there are a lot of people who play Path of Exile and they spend like 90% of the time just playing Sims, just like doing hideout decorating. And you're basically gatekeeping those people from enjoying your game by the really archaic favor system. And based on that feedback, they did actually improve the favor system. I think it was like the next league or the league afterwards. But it still felt very like outdated. And it's just it's a really bad feeling, because it's like, for most people it doesn't matter because you've played PoE for so long, you've like just built up so much favor. But if you're like new to Path of Exile and you discover there's this like Sims thing, you're like, oh, I really want to play this. Oh, this seems really fun. I want to decorate. And then say, oh yeah, you need to have like 500 hours of mapping to have enough favor to afford this stuff. It's like, oh, well, now I'm just bummed out and I don't want to play the thing. So the fact they've made that change is amazing. And once again, Tarke is a genius. And I'm going to take full credit for something that I suggested like 5 years ago. On that thing, they've also improved the filtering of hideout decorations, which again should make hideout stuff much more enjoyable. There's a whole big push for guild hideouts, which is really cool. I'm not sure how hype I am for guild hideouts. I play SSF and I play a lot of private leagues, so I'll probably get the best experience out of anyone when it comes to guild hideouts. But non-guild members cannot go to a guild hideout. So when it comes to stuff like trading, you'll be in a kind of an awkward situation where, like, if you're using your guild hideout to map and then you get a trade, you'll have to leave the guild hideout to go to your hideout to beat the player that you're buying from to trade from them to then go back to the guild hideout. It's adding a bunch of steps to an already labor intensive trading system. So while I'm sure some people will really enjoy the fact that anyone can just map from the guild hideout, most people will probably just continue to map from their own hideouts, but it's a great feature for the people who are there. So, it's kind of cool. So, finally, when it comes to the big new things coming in Scourge, Perendus is out and Expedition is in. Expedition will be part of the core game in 3.16, and we will now have auto looting on all artifacts. So, very, very nice. Let's now talk about some of the things that stood out to me from Scourge League. Again, all of those things are amazing things to be super excited for. And I do this whenever a new league comes out. I talk about some things I think could maybe cause an issue. So this is on my potential con list. And again, I haven't played any of the new content, so this is just speculation. Timers. It is a timer-based league mechanic. Some people just really hate timers. Some people don't like the pressure of it. Some people feel forced by certain builds when there's a timer league. It's been a while since we've had a timer-based league. I'm generally okay with timer-based gameplay, but I understand that some people just really don't like it, so fair enough. Next up, currency bloat. We're getting 5 new types of currency orb this league. So yes, while GGG is doing a very good job of improving the looting, slowly but surely, adding loads of new currency orbs doesn't really help with that. I'm still not really sold on the whole sacred orb system and the perfect defenses on items. I kind of wish the system just didn't exist. But yeah, we're getting a whole bunch of new currency orbs. Yeah. The main difficulty from Scourge seems to be this stacking debuff thing, where the longer you're in the Scourge, the more damage you take. I can see that getting very messy very quickly. I'm not sure if that is the most engaging way per se to make content challenging, just scaling up a crazy amount. So I don't know. And then the other thing is there's a lot of delayed rewards in this league mechanic. So yes, you'll be getting more XP. Yes, you'll be getting to level up your Scourge passives. But it seems like the main reward comes from getting a piece of gear that you really like, Scourging it a couple of times to get these really powerful new modifiers. You cannot Scourge gear you currently have equipped because it needs to be put in this blood device. So let's say that you have a 6-link chest that you want to, Scourge. You then need a backup 6-link chest to use while the chest you want to Scourge is charging in the device. And then you run 50 maps, and then whoops, it got a bad modifier on it. I guess you need to run another 50 maps to maybe get a good modifier on it. So you could be in this situation where it's just a very, very delayed reward. And delayed rewards can be good, but generally speaking, when we've had delayed reward leagues in the past, the player base has complained because the player base generally prefers front-loaded rewards. A good example would be Ritual League. Ritual League was very rewarding, but during the league itself, there was a lot of complaints. It's I'm not getting the currency now. I'm getting it tomorrow or 3 days from now, and that's kind of frustrating. And I imagine we could have some of those issues with Scourge League, so we'll just kind of have to wait and see by how long it really takes to get an item up to a tier 3 mod, and how mandatory it really feels. And since that is the main reward thing, I could also see a situation where you feel like you haven't really got any items you want to Scourge, but I guess in that case you can just Scourge your maps instead and just enjoy the rewards from having Scourge maps. So in that case, it's not like you'll never have nothing to engage with. You'll always be able to just even if you didn't Scourge any items, just from killing monsters, you're getting this additional world with more loot and more XP in it. So even if you don't really engage with the system, you're benefiting. Map density is always good. But, And I think that's kind of really it. I'm kind of struggling to like pull apart potential flaws of this league. I'm sure more things will come out. There'll be something that someone's overlooked. But generally speaking, I am feeling very, very positive for this league. I think that's probably something for everyone, because even if you're not hyped for the league, then maybe some of the aspirational content, if you're not hyped for the aspirational content, if you're someone who likes to just make like wacky builds and chain reroll before you even hit to maps, you've then got the passive skill tree stuff to look forward to. I think there's basically something for every kind of player with this one. So yeah, again, just a brief reminder, we're doing a Bay class tomorrow. I'll have a separate video coming out soon, going over patch notes, and I'll make a video going over all the passive skill tree stuff when we have an updated path of building. I'm Tarke, have a great day, and let me know what you think of 3.16, by the way. Bye-bye.